Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, this is the Fawn Pod, the Fawn Cast. It's friends occasionally not disagreeing. It's the greatest podcast on this planet. At least that's what my mom tells me. We're here today with a very special holiday story as we're recording this on St. Patrick's Day. Uh, we wanted to bring you some of that holiday cheer, but before we get into that, tonight we have Cody and Justin here with us. What you guys been up to? Let's start with Cody. How about you?
Oh, snap. What have I been up to? Well, I guess most recently, last night, I hosted a little soiree here at my house where we did a version of a game called I'm Sure You're Wondering Why I've Gathered You All Here This Evening, or as I call it, the shortest titled game of all time. And basically each come as, well, you don't even have to come as, but I spruced it up a little bit. But essentially you create a character that you learn some details about as the game starts, some that you want to add in yourself. But essentially, you are playing a game of death created by a recently deceased person to be the last person left alive when dawn hits to inherit a private island, a giant mansion, and a ton of money if you're the last person left alive. So we played last night. I was the butler hosting the game for the recently deceased. There were 5 human players, 7 NPCs in the game because you have to have 12. And when all was said and done, all 7 of the NPCs had been killed, and 2 of the human players had been killed. There were 3 left, so therefore nobody won the entire inheritance. But we had a heck of a good time creating it. You get to explore the mansion and describe the rooms as you see them. If you're the first person in, you get to kind of tell what room it is and some details about that room. So we very quickly started off with a foyer and a conservatory and a ballroom and a music room, I think, and a billiard room. But then it started to get a little more off the rails past that. I believe the other rooms were including the feathered room, the
Oh
Museum
my.
of Rare Two-Toe-Pronged Chicken Feet room. One room was just simply called the Fuck Pad, but we don't need to get into the details on that. There was a Jello wrestling arena inside that, amongst other things.
Of course.
And yeah, I don't know. So it kind of devolved a little bit, maybe perhaps as we were having more drinks. But it's a lot of fun. You can just kind of make the game whatever you want. It's just more or less a storytelling exercise. But we had a lot of fun with it. So that's the most recent thing I guess I've been up to.
It does sound like a good time.
Nice.
How about you, Justin?
Well, I also had something of an adventure this weekend. Not
Tell us
nearly
about
as
the
fun.
fuck pad.
Oh no, actually, in a roundabout sort of way.
Ooh!
The event, no, not that. The events of this weekend do kind of almost have a connection to St. Patty's Day because St. Patrick, noted for legendarily chasing all the snakes out of Ireland or killing them or what have you. So my story also involves a snake of sorts. And again, it's not the fuck pad, Cody. So the sink in our upstairs bathroom has been nothing but trouble for years. And I recently actually picked up a drain snake. So nothing that exciting. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to finally get to the bottom of this clog. I'm gonna, get this thing working again because plunging only does so much. So I go through, I feed it down into the drain, and I feel a little bit of resistance. I'm like, okay, there's the clog. I push, there's this noise, and water starts draining onto the floor, flooding my entire bathroom. I look down after I've gotten it all mopped up. There's a hole in the pipe where I guess just tapping it with the snake caused it to just disintegrate. And my entire weekend, or at least most of yesterday, was spent with my wife and my father-in-law and my cat watching, trying to replace and re-plumb everything so that it actually works again. It was not how I anticipated spending my weekend, but that's kind of the big new thing in my world. So I'm glad at least you had fun recently, Cody.
Well, the guy I worked for died, but other than that, just in the story.
Oh,
in the game we played. But that does make you think though, Justin, if you like broke through that so easily with the snake, it's probably fortunate that it happened while you were there because it doesn't sound like there was much left holding it together. That could have been a lot worse if you
Yeah.
were gone.
That's very true. Yeah. And it's just amazing how little pressure it took because I just
Mm.
felt it was like, okay, there's like, it was like pressing against someone's hand when they're not really pressing against you. That's what it felt like for the pressure. I'm like, okay, it feels like that might be hair, that might be the clog, and then just gone. So,
Do you have a lot of hands in your drains, or how does?
I mean, I can neither confirm nor deny that for legal reasons.
Okay.
So,
All right.
um, what about you, Brett? Hopefully, you had a better time than I did this weekend.
Well, I have neither a story about busting pipes with my snake or a fuck pad, but what I have been doing is continuing playing Pal World. I recently captured a human and put him in my base, so
Oh,
I'm an equal opportunity slave master now. Um, it's not only creatures in my slave mansion. But also I've been playing, well, not playing, but spending a little bit of time with the Dragon's Dogma 2 character creator, which I know Justin, obviously you have been doing as well. Which they released ahead of the official game release, so that you can get your characters ready before
Hmm.
the actual game comes out, which is a great, amazing idea because that's often like every time a game like this comes out, I spend like 2 to 3 hours making a character before I can even start playing the game. And
That
so
is
to
a good idea.
have this available before the game actually comes out is really, really great. But what's amazing about it is it's equally the tools that allow you to create these characters are so extensive that people have been making some really, really like true to a life, appearance of people, like real life people and characters in movies and things like that. They've also been creating some really grotesque monsters.
Yes, they have.
It is really something to go check out if you have some time and want to Google some of that stuff. Like holy moly! We also started watching a show on Netflix called The Gentleman, which I think just recently came out like last week or something. But essentially this it's in England. I believe I think I'm not 100% sure where it takes place, but yeah, it does obviously because story points. I won't I won't divulge here, but excuse me. Uh Essentially the guy comes back from he's in the military, comes back because his father's like on his deathbed. Father dies and the guy like inherits this mansion. He's now the Duke of Halstead, I think it is. um so he's like minor royalty, and discovers there is some illegal activity happening on his property, and then he's like stuck in this situation of do I continue doing this or do I try and end it. But it's been pretty entertaining so far. It's like there's some there's some wild like underworld type stuff going on here, but we're only like halfway through, I think. That's been pretty fun. So uh I guess that's it. Let's get into tonight's story, which is we have a case that's it's not really true crime. It's more like a an unsolved mysterious death. And this is the case of Peter Bergmann, a man who was found dead on a beach in Ireland in 2009. A case which has never been solved really to any degree. Um, and there's still people out there trying to figure out exactly who this guy was and what happened. And one thing I probably could note right up front here is that the city of Sligo, Ireland, which is where this takes place, it has a really extensive CCTV network. For whatever reason, they just have a lot of cameras in this town. So what's interesting about this case is there are actually many events that are actually have video documentation, which is pretty rare for something like this, I think. But let's just let's do a quick run through the facts here. What actually we know happened in this case.
Okay.
And feel free to jump in with anything that that you have on your list that I may have missed or whatnot. And I'm just going to focus just on the plain facts at this moment. But starting on Friday, June 12th, 2009, a man boarded a bus in Derry, Ireland, headed for Sligo. He was carrying 2 black bags, one shoulder bag, which was larger but kind of flat, somewhat like a laptop bag, and another smaller black handheld kind of carry-all bag. Upon arriving in Sligo, he asked a taxi to take him to a hotel. The first one of which was full, so he went to his second one, which was the Sligo City Hotel. He checked in at 6:28 p.m., giving the name Peter Bregmann. It's with 2 N's. And an address that he was reported as, see if I can pronounce this correctly, Einstedersen 15, 4472, Vienna, Austria, which apparently was written as, I think, WIEN or something, which is like one, like the way that they write Vienna in Austria.
Mhm.
I am not actually certain, but I know I've seen that like in multiple places where it was not spelled Vienna, it was like WIEN. But
Mhm.
anyways, he did speak English, and it was said that he had either an Australian or not Australian, Austrian,
Crikey.
or possibly a German accent. He gave no form of identification, paid in cash for 3 days. And perhaps because he paid in cash is why the attendant didn't ask for identification, which is, though it's even a pretty typical practice for most hotels. So he never proved like who he was, just gave his name and address. It said he was neatly groomed, like a well-dressed man. He was always wearing his blue trousers and shirt with a black leather jacket. And over the course of his 3-day stay, which was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, again recorded on the CCTV, it was shown taking many walks around Sligo, leaving the hotel a total of 13 times, according to the footage. And this is where things started getting weird. So each time he left the hotel, he was carrying a purple plastic bag, not as other luggage, but a plastic bag, similar to what you might receive your items in when shopping at any kind of typical retail store. As perhaps like a little bit less than like 2 square feet in size, having handles at the top, just a general carrying bag for your stuff.
Like something from Barnes and Noble, kind of like that size.
Yeah. And what was odd with it is that he always had something in the bag when he left the hotel. Like there's something visible. I'll discuss that later, but always had something in the bag. And what was odd is that every time he came back to the hotel, the bag was nowhere to be seen. So he either stuffed the empty bag into his pockets, or he disposed of the bag completely. That bit of it is unclear, because though they have this extensive CCTV network, at no point was he ever seen visibly either dumping the bag or disposing of the bag anywhere around town. But he would show up back without a bag in hand. And it's been speculated that he was aware of the CCTV's blind spots and was using those to his advantage, though it's not confirmed either way. On one of his walks on Saturday, it was to the post office. He purchased 8 82-cent stamps along with airmail stickers. Although I've never actually I haven't heard said or anything that he purchased envelopes, so I don't know if it's kind of a standard thing to just put stamps on a letter directly and just mail it that way, or if if you're required to have an envelope. I don't know, but
could have been postcards, I guess.
Postcards
Maybe.
you could, yeah, but
yeah, possibly. Yeah, that's true. If he had some postcards, that would work. And I actually saw one source that stated that there was a video of him possibly mailing letters, but it was like so poor quality that it wasn't really useful for anything. But there was only one place that I saw that actually like said that. Basically every other source that I looked at this week said that there's no confirmation of him mailing anything, just buying stamps. On Sunday, he asked a taxi to recommend a nice quiet beach where he could swim. The driver took him to Ross's Point Beach, where Peter looked around for a bit, seemed satisfied with it, and got back into the taxi to be driven back to the hotel. On Monday the 15th, Peter asked for a late checkout from the hotel, and made one last walk with a purple bag. He checked out at 1:06 p.m., leaving with 3 bags: the black shoulder bag and the purple bag, which once again contained something. And he also had a second black luggage bag, which there seems to be a little discrepancy here. Some places say it was the same carry-all bag from before, and I've seen other places say that it was a different style bag. So where he would have gotten a different bag from, no one knows. He walked to the bus station, stopping at one point to stand in a doorway, seemingly with no purpose at all, for a number of minutes before continuing on his journey. Somewhere between the hotel and the bus station, he somehow loses the smaller black bag. Again, this is not caught on any camera footage. But when he shows up at the bus station, he has the larger shoulder bag and the purple plastic bag, and that's it. At the bus station, he ordered a cappuccino and a toasted ham and cheese sandwich. Sitting down to eat, he was also seen looking at a piece of paper, which he took from his pocket. It's been stated that he was writing something on it, though I haven't seen video of him actually doing that to confirm. And then on the video, you can also see he's doing something with the paper. Most people seem to think he was ripping it up. Personally, I watched it and it looks more to me like he was folding it up, like when you fold a paper like as small as you can get it into like this little tiny crumpled paper. That's more what it looked like to me, but we could discuss that later. And it is confirmed that after this point, he goes and throws it in a nearby garbage bin. He then gets on the bus for Ross's Point, which departed at 2:20 p.m. And while at the beach, he was seen by many people. As he kind of stood out because he was like still wearing the leather jacket and full pants. Although he did have his pants apparently pulled up around his knees since he was walking in the edge of the water at times. The last person to report seeing him around the beach was at about 10:30 p.m. As Peter's walking down some stairs, headed back to the beach again. So he was at the beach for about 8 hours in total that day, just pacing back and forth, apparently. On Tuesday morning, his body was found on the beach, assumed to have died from drowning, though the medical examiner, quote, found no evidence of classical saltwater drowning. What that evidence would be, I'm not certain, but that's what the quote is from the medical examiner. He was found wearing a purple Speedo type swim short, so like a tight fitting swimsuit. His underwear was worn over top of the swim shorts, and he was also had a blue short sleeve shirt, which was tucked into the underwear. So a lot of oddities there.
Interesting.
The investigation showed that the tags on all of his clothing had been cut off. Some items were found on the beach nearby, including his pants, shoes, an envelope with some money, a bottle of aspirin, and a wrapped bar of hotel soap. Though none of the bags were found, somehow he managed to dispose of them at the beach, where presumably there wouldn't be many places to hide items. So where those went, no one knows. Maybe possibly in the ocean, and they just sank and were never found. But again, no one knows. Toxicology report showed nothing in his system, not even the aspirin which he carried. And further investigation found that he had extensive prostate cancer as well as bone tumors, and almost certainly would have been in a lot of pain and likely only had weeks to live, they suspected. There was also some signs of previous heart attacks. During the investigation, it was discovered that the address he gave does not exist, and the postal code he gave is not assigned to any part of Austria. It is assumed that his real name is not Peter Bregmann, since they could find no records of a man matching that age profile anywhere in Europe, North America, or South America. He was later buried in Sligo City after a 5-month investigation, could not determine who he really was or where he came from, or if he had any relatives. And that concludes what I have for facts on this case. Is there anything else there that you guys had?
One thing that jumped out to me is most of you mentioned in your account that he was clothed, if strangely, when they found him. Most of the reports I found said that he was nude when the father and son who were out for a jog found him on the beach.
Hmm.
But again, I
Yeah, that's
mean,
big, big difference.
yeah, and that his clothes were either folded neatly and piled on a rock some distance away, or they were strewn about the beach. So even in what I found regarding some of the details around that is kind of inconsistent.
Okay.
Which is interesting considering this case isn't really that old. 15 years at this point, if it happened in 2009, you'd think that it would be a more consistent story, but it's
Mhm.
weird. Just even in that one set of details, there's so much variance.
Yeah, especially with as many witnesses and testimonials that we have on this case as well, it seems.
Hmm.
So, okay.
Um, let's see.
I'm trying to think. You covered it pretty well. Um, I had one video I watched said that the Irish police sent his DNA and fingerprints out to places they thought he might have come from, and there were no hits. Nobody recognized
Right.
anything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing, I don't know if you call it a fact, but apparently there's somebody who testifies about this. There is an interaction, I don't know if we want to talk about it now or not, but of a staff member at the hotel who went into his room while he was there, or at least she testified that that happened.
That's right. I
Um,
didn't mention that. So, yeah, if you want to go ahead and
well, it just seems short of from what I think I gathered on that. It was like probably housekeeping type thing where they like
Mhm.
knocked on the door and he didn't answer. So she let herself in and like basically said he was like right there and like looked very startled and shocked when somebody had come in. But I think then I guess according to her at least calmed down once he saw who it was.
Right.
Was emphasized, which I think that might play into possible theories here later on as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Uh, so I guess at this point, with the facts out of the way, we can just jump into just questions and theories that you guys have. Um, so I'll just start off with one here. Uh,
Mhm.
what do we think was in the purple bag? Let's go right for a big one here.
Most of the speculation I've seen on this suggests that it was just whatever small personal belongings he had brought with him in the other bags, and he was taking them to dispose of them covertly in this place where he had no connection and nobody knew him. Which is why he only, he made so many trips because he had to take stuff out bits at a time. It is important to note the purple bag itself. When you see it in the security footage, it's entirely opaque. You can only see maybe the
Mm,
vaguest of outlines of anything in there. And sometimes it
right.
looks like it's packed pretty full. Sometimes it looks like it doesn't have a whole lot in it. But it all looks, I mean, it looks all looks fairly uniform in shape from what you can see. So like papers or documents or something like that, as far as I could make out from the outlines. It didn't look like it was really bulgy with oblong shaped things or, you
Mm.
know, uh, odd items. It all seems like whatever was in there was probably um, stationary in nature, so to speak.
Yeah, in a couple of the videos I watched as well, it looked like it was like kind of like large and like something like large and soft was in there,
Hmm.
like perhaps like clothing, like kind of
Okay.
balled up, that kind of look. Um, but yeah, I would agree that like the videos that I've seen, it never looked like there was some like weirdly like a box shaped thing in there,
Yeah.
anything like that. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this one really gets to like the crux of whether you think this is an ominous case or not, because I don't know what's in the bags, but almost every website and documentary video I watched on YouTube on this case all assumed it was his belongings that he was distributing throughout the town, which I'll just start
mm,
by saying I don't buy. So for me, this is like it's going to take me down a path already. I just can't conceive of a reason. Here's why.
Mhm.
That if this guy, and we'll get into some theories maybe in a bit here, but if this guy were to distribute his personal belongings in some strange foreign city, Like, why do that? Like,
Mm,
I just don't
yeah.
know why he would do that. If some of the theories we'll talk about later
Mhm.
are true, then I don't think he would A, bring these with him. B, why would you do all that for a city you have no connection to? And then C, this business about the CCTV footage everywhere. Like, if this was somebody who was really trying to get rid of these items without ever being seen on film anywhere, why go through all the trouble of doing that? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
You could have gone anywhere in the world that doesn't have cameras to get
Yeah.
rid of your things.
Or just not brought something. Like, that's more what I was thinking, right? Like, if this was
Right.
me and I was going up here to do whatever, I just wouldn't bring that stuff with me.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. Like, why would he have so many things with him if it was just like clothing? Like, why would you have so much clothing with you for this trip that you have to, like, just take 13 trips to dispose of it all?
Yeah.
um,
Go ahead.
I was going to say regarding the surveillance cameras, do we know how common, like, out in the open, police slash government operated CCTV cameras are in Ireland? Like, maybe
Mm,
he had some connection to the country itself in general, and no matter where he went, there would have been some form of surveillance. And he just happened to go to this place where it seemed like he didn't know his way around. It just as to get as far away from any place he had a connection, a broader connection to as possible. And it's implied he hadn't been there before because he took the taxi into town from the bus station, and it's like a 10-minute walk. And he took other rides on trips that would have taken like between 10 and 20 minutes from the estimates I've seen. So I don't know, maybe anywhere he went in Ireland, there would be some form of surveillance. I've been trying to look this up a little in the background, and I haven't found anything conclusive. I found
mm.
like laws governing it, like, for private use and stuff and business use, but I haven't been able to find like a map or like an overall description of how common it is in Ireland. Um,
I mean, this is me projecting my own thoughts here historically, but like, if you look at the map of where this place is, it is kind of a little secluded bay in the middle of Ireland, but it's also like mathematically, what are we looking at? About 27, 28 miles from the border with Northern Ireland. So I don't know if like the Irish would be more paranoid there to like keep track of what's happening with the border. I don't really know. I'm just speculating, but it still seems like a pretty remote, like almost like touristy little area that I don't know that they would be as heavily monitoring that. So
Yeah.
okay.
I
Another
don't, I was even thinking just like, sorry to go back here, but
Mhm.
like, how do we know this guy just didn't like pack a bunch of food in one of his bags and he's just like taking his lunch out every day and then throwing out the bag? Like, I'm like, where are they getting this idea that he was getting rid of all his most personal items from?
That's an interesting thought that it was just lunch
He's
that
just
he was
literally
carrying with
carrying his
him.
lunch around. Then when he's
That
done, he threw the bag out.
that
I
is
admit
something
that's
I've
He
not
ate
heard
lunch in the
that said,
same place every day, and that's where all the purple bags went, the same
but
trash can.
it makes sense. Yeah. Um, Another point that came to my mind that I haven't seen anybody else bring up anything is just the fact of the total volume of things that he carried out in this purple bag. If you look at the other luggage that he brought with him, 13 trips with that purple bag, which the purple bag is probably volume wise holds, I would say, somewhere around half of the larger shoulder bag. Like the shoulder bag was not a big luggage bag.
Hmm.
If you filled that purple bag up 13 times, that all would not fit into his other luggage that he brought with him. So whatever he's carrying out, I don't think he necessarily brought all of that with him. what exactly he would have been carrying out then? Perhaps gets even a little bit weirder. Although unless, like you say, maybe some of it is just his lunch. That could be a possibility. though he's making like 13 trips in 2 days, so that's not all food. Clearly, but
I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, just from a sheer volume and space perspective, that doesn't add up.
Part of me hopes that he was just like taking out a large pack of like files, and then when he'd come back in, he'd just like put them under his shirt and walk back in, and then he'd fill it up just to do. So like here we are 15 years later trying to figure this thing out still. Like,
This
what's with
giant
this guy?
mystery. He created a mystery for us to figure out.
It's great.
um, so I mean, do we want to like speculate on who this guy could have been? Like, what kind of person this guy was? I get the from the eyewitness accounts and from the footage of him walking around. This seems like a person who is like he's aware of himself. He's cognizant of his surroundings, the situation. He's not like he doesn't seem to be a person who's perhaps having like mental health issues or is like unaware of what he's doing. The staff in the interviews never indicated anything other than he was like kind of alert and in control of himself, like just regular dude. Though when he's the footage of him walking around also doesn't look like a man who's just sightseeing either. It's like he's just walking straight down streets with a purpose, not looking around at anything. He's just like getting from point A to point B. So do you guys have any thoughts on like what on just him in general, like his mental state or anything?
I do, but it feeds directly into what I think happened. So I don't know if you want me to necessarily get into that right now.
Okay.
I agree.
Hold on that.
I agree with you that I think he has purpose, because even just like when he took was a taxi ride he originally took out to the beach, like the taxi driver was going to leave and he just like surveyed the beach and he just got back in the car. Like whatever about the beach met his approval, I guess. There's some, like I mentioned the staff in the hotel, but I think in some of the documentaries I watched, there were some other people that bumped into this guy also that said he was like mildly startled, like when he came upon these people, or like somebody surprised him and, threw him out a little bit of like his mental state of wherever he's at, if he's deep in thought or whatever. But that kind of makes me think, like, was he really just lost in his own thoughts of whatever it was that he was considering, or was he actually partially on the lookout for like another person to be there that he could bump into, or some other option? I'm not really sure. Like, and that kind of again goes to me with some other pieces to this case too, which are like that all of his clothes had the tags taken out of them. You could read into that several different ways with theories here in a bit. Did this guy actually avoid all of the cameras? It sounds like, since this is so recent and since the police actually did look into this and people have been kind of looking at this mystery for a while, that seems to be the case, that they don't have actual footage of this guy like depositing anything on camera, or perhaps, some pieces to the mystery that haven't popped up yet. But then again, like, question would be why? Like, why do that? Because there could be a couple of different reasons for that as well. So you're definitely right. There's like deliberate behavior here, because if you believe that he avoided the cameras, like that took a concerted effort to be able to do that. Like, I would not spend my day. The weirder thing too is like all the video footage. I never saw him like looking around at like street poles or anything.
Right. Like, okay, here's where I'm at. There's a camera.
And some people hypothesized like he must have known the grid for the CCTV. And I'm like,
like had it memorized yet.
What?
That seems a bit extreme.
Yeah, you're right. There's never a shot of him looking directly at a camera, like taking note of one, and then he's always just kind of like looking at whatever's around him, like a normal person would. That's interesting. I do want, since you mentioned the clothes, I do want to circle back to that for just a second. I in one of the sources I was looking through, apparently they were able to trace at least some of his clothes to a manufacturer.
Oh, okay.
I based on like the cut or like the design or something that they were able to identify despite the lack of tags. A company called C&A, which doesn't narrow things down much because apparently they're a pretty popular brand throughout Europe. But they were able to at least get some sort of snippet of information about his belongings from what I was able to find.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Yeah,
since we're talking about that, what do you make about the tags being cut off? And what's even more interesting about this is that if you look at because the one documentary that I watched, the woman at the police department had the evidence and was like showing it to the camera. And so
Yeah.
you can see how the tags were cut. And like they were not cut cleanly, like they weren't cut completely off. All of them seem to have like some of the tags still left, which seems even more weird to me because you could very easily say, as many people looking at this case have said, is that, well, he just thought the tags were itchy, so he cut them off, which people do. I mean, I don't, but I can understand people who would. But if you're going to cut the tag off, you cut the whole thing off. You don't leave half of it, which would probably be even more irritating than a full tag would be.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about that at all?
Honestly, go on.
I was just gonna say I frequently will cut out the ones on the back of my t-shirt because I hate when they brush my neck. I don't think I've ever cut a tag off of any place else on clothing, but I don't really buy into the fact that he would have cut them because they were itchy. Like, if you believe some of the theories we're going to talk about, like, he may not have been living that much longer. So is this a big concern of his? Like, oh, this tag's itchy, I better cut it off. So then is it because like he was like you guys are both saying like trying to just keep any details of where he could possibly be from? Is that the purpose of this? But I mean it's also 2009, like it's we've looked at a couple of cases where it's like, and there was this piece of clothing that may have been manufactured in this obscure plant in Germany in 1925, if we can follow the link. Like anything this guy was wearing, probably you could theoretically find, I guess.
Yeah, you could do like an image search and be like, oh, well, this is this is the fan manufacturer of this.
Maybe he hadn't heard of the internet though.
Well, I mean, I think he did what he could to erase anything that connected him to anything, and short of going like full Heath Ledger Joker and making his own clothing by hand, I mean, there's only so much he could do. He has to wear something, and in terms of why the tags weren't cut cleanly. I've never been as sick as this guy, but from the accounts I've read, he was probably in a lot of pain, and it may have impeded his fine motor functions a bit. Maybe he couldn't do a clean cut because his hand was shaking from the pain or something. It's speculation, but it seems plausible to me. So maybe he did as best he could, and he couldn't grasp what was left enough to really get another cut of it, and he just left it is the job that he in the state that he was able to get them in. That's my guess as to why the tags weren't cut cleanly.
You mentioned the pain thing, and that's a really interesting point too, I think, because pain's going to manifest itself differently between different people, and the same circumstance in different people, same condition in different people. And that's interesting too, like if he had medicine on him, but it wasn't like, I mean, did he have more with him that they found at the beach other than like the Tylenol?
The aspirinol, yeah.
So, I mean, no offense, but you have like super advanced cancer. I just can't imagine Tylenol's cutting into that too much in terms of pain. But on the other hand, like, again, knock on wood here, personal story, but I just mentioned you guys a while ago. My grandpa just found cancer, and like he was living his life daily, like he wasn't in terrible pain. So like
didn't even know.
It can be totally different, Somebody can die of cancer and not even know they had it, or somebody can be in crippling pain. So the footage you see of this guy, though, I don't take it as somebody who's like hunched over, like crying in pain every time they show him. Like he's walking streets, he's walking hallways, he's talking to people, he's smoking cigarettes in the alcove.
That's true.
So how much pain is this guy in? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. For a man who, we didn't mention it, but we don't know his name. We don't know his age because we don't know who he is. But appears to be between 55 and 60 years old is what they figured. And I would for someone that age, that he seemed like he was getting around pretty average for someone that age. Like not youthful, but not like not really struggling to get about.
That's true. Yeah. I hadn't considered, correlating it with what we could actually literally see of him moving around. So that's a fair point.
Maybe his shoulder satchel had a self-replicating cancer monster that he would take a little piece out every day in a purple bag and he'd swallow it somewhere.
That's a theory.
You guys still there? Okay, all right. For sure.
Okay.
We'll put that down here on the list as a
Hello?
theory.
Hello?
Yeah, we can touch on that later. Yeah, maybe, possibly.
Wait, why are you guys logging off?
Oh, before we do anything, I do want to say in all of the searching I did, and a lot of it seemed like it covered the same ground, I did find one source that this is the only potential lead I found as to an identity for this guy. And I'm saying it now because, well, you'll see. There was in 2020, there was some research done by some person who was into this. I don't remember exactly which source because I looked through a lot of them. But he thought maybe it matched the description of a missing person from the Netherlands, a man named apologies if I butcher the pronunciation, Johannes Huibert Quist. A bit younger than they pegged quote unquote Peter Bergmann as being, but his face looked fairly similar. Just in terms of like overall features, the shape, the width, the eyebrows. Maybe not exact, but close. He went missing in 2004. And as of the time that the video that I saw mentioning this guy was posted, it was I think April of 2020, I want to say. But a little information on this Johannes guy. So apparently, from his home, he took a rental car to France, where it was found abandoned. And from that was the last anyone saw of a trace of him. Until several months after this video was made, October of 2020, they found his body on a beach I think it was a beach in France, but basically they found him. That case has been solved. But that for initially when I saw this, this was the only lead I was able to find for a possible identity for Peter Bergmann. So a close chance there of maybe getting some closure, but no. So I just wanted to get that out of the way because it's a footnote. And one that was tantalizing for a bit and then just kind of fizzled out. So
Okay.
but it does show just how much this case has captured the imagination and the interest of people kind of across the world, that someone noted a missing person from the Netherlands so many years after the fact and said, hey, maybe this is the guy. It's interesting just how much these sorts of things can get their hooks in you.
Let's talk a bit about how do we think that he actually died? So now, say the medical examiner said he didn't see signs of a classical drowning, though he never said he didn't drown. And I think the official on record, well, actually, this says one thing I'm looking at here. It says cause of death is heart attack. I think the official one is drowning, but
I've seen conflicting accounts of that too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I'm thinking like possibly drowning isn't the cause. That I actually a heart attack almost feels like it would fit, potentially though. I mean, it's not like it depends on how you look at the case, I guess. Like, a lot of people have theorized that he came to this town, disposed of all his things, because he was planning to drown himself in the ocean, and just like go out on on his own terms, basically, because this cancer was gonna, he only had like a month or two left to live potentially, and wanted to go out, in his own way. So if he did die of a heart attack in attempting to drown himself would be pretty coincidental, though not impossible given his his health state. But is there anything you guys have, just ideas or theories about how he actually died?
I think you're probably pretty close to to being on the money. I think he waited until he was alone on the beach and just tried to basically swim out and be swept away by the waves, so by the current, and maybe the exertion from that triggered the heart attack. and which would explain why there were no quote unquote classical signs of drowning, supposedly according to the coroner. Because if he, if he was dead before he really sunk under and he didn't have that time to struggle for breath under the water, that would explain why there wouldn't be much water in his lungs, say.
Right.
So yeah, that's my take on that. He probably just waited until he knew he was 100% alone and just tried to vanish, swim out as far as he could, and just never be found. And the current, ironically, brought him back to the shore.
That's kind of more or less what I was thinking as well. The only question I had on that was, I know a heart attack can be very long or it can be very short. And my question was, if you were exerting yourself to the point of death while swimming, like, could you, sounds morbid, but could you physically die from the heart attack before you would inhale some salt water while swimming? Like, to me, it just seems like if you're going to have a heart attack swimming, you probably wouldn't physically be able to die fast enough that you wouldn't also be swallowing water or have evidence of water within
Right.
you.
Yeah,
So
I can
that's
see
a
that.
big question. I can't find a copy of the autopsy on this one, but then if he doesn't have any, what does unusual drowning circumstance mean or not typical drowning? I mean, that could be taken a lot of ways. If that's the case, then are they insinuating that he may have had a heart attack on shore and was placed into the water? Or the tide came up and grabbed him while he was on the shore? I mean, that could have happened a lot of different ways. I don't know. I don't hear a lot about people who are labeled as drowning victims that don't have evidence of drowning.
Right. The part that I kind of find interesting is that, at least according to my what I've seen and heard, is that he was wearing the swimsuit. So if he did, in case, in fact was wearing the swimsuit while he was at the beach, he was there for 8 hours and never went swimming. Right. So no one ever said, oh, this guy was swimming in the ocean.
Yeah.
He was just pacing up and down the beach. So if he was wearing it and planned to go swimming, why wait until dark to do it? A, B, if he's there, and would it make sense that he's waiting for people to go away and he's just going to go out and go out into the ocean and try and drown himself? Why are you wearing a swimsuit? and why take any clothes off, as wearing more clothes would speed the process theoretically?
Interesting.
It's a weird, it's kind of like they're conflicting things. Like those two don't seem to go together. If he was trying to drown himself, why would he wear a swimsuit?
Unless he wanted to make sure he got out far enough that that he thought he wouldn't get carried back to shore. Like, he thought the heavy clothes would get in the way of him being able to make that distance. It's stab in the dark, but I mean, it makes a little bit of sense.
Right. It's at least something that could possibly explain it.
Yeah. Because I mean, trying to swim in clothes, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't say I've actually tried it myself, but I can imagine it being not as easy. Yes. One thing that I came across here was the possibility that he was trying to get an insurance payout for someone. So the idea of that being that if he had simply died from the cancer, and now that I'm saying this, that doesn't seem to make sense either. Well, so let's just continue down this thought process here. So potentially he was not able to get insurance because the insurance company said, hey, look, we're not going to insure you. You are literally weeks from dying. Like, that's not good for us to go for that. But perhaps he had some sort of like accidental death insurance. And so if he could just disappear and not be found to have died from his illnesses, would someone receive a payout from that? I don't actually know the answer to it. I'm just throwing that idea out there. I don't know what especially since we're here in America and this is happening in in the UK. I don't know what all of their insurance laws and stuff are, but
What is insurance?
That seems backwards to me, though,
Hashtag USA.
because if you were trying to get insurance money, then wouldn't you do everything you can to make sure people knew who you were when you died?
well, I guess
Why?
That
the idea
is
is that if you just like disappear and
Okay.
there's no way of proving how you died, then maybe there's a payout there somehow.
well, but if you disappear, then there's no way to prove that you're dead either,
Oh,
is the thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So
Yeah,
I mean that's why cold
does kind of
cases,
fall
yeah.
apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
But I
know
mean
about this one.
but I mean if he was intending to just be found having drowned out at sea or whatever, I mean that kind of well then, yeah, then again it doesn't explain the false
Well,
identity thing.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, that's so it's like every time it seems like okay that clicks, and then there's some other element that makes it not click.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, so that sounds like that is not real plausible, but was something I
yeah,
came across.
okay. Hmm.
Uh Cody kind of brought this up I think in jest earlier, but
The
the
cancer
idea that
monster.
not that one.
The fuck pad? Back on the fuck pad?
Yes, that one. No, the the idea that this could possibly be some sort of elaborate scavenger hunt that either no one has solved or at
Hmm.
least no one has admitted to solving. Um, could he have possibly been hiding things about town and then mailed letters out to people saying, "Come find my shit"?
Interesting.
I have seen people with the idea that he was hiding cash around town. For what purpose? Other than leaving it for someone else to find? I don't know. And again, why you would do it in this seemingly this town that has no connection to you or that you don't even possibly know yourself. I don't know. But the idea that he was putting things hiding things so other people could find them. What do we think of this idea?
That's interesting. I hadn't really considered that just from like he knows he's gonna die, so he has money. Why not have some other people benefit from it? Just find a random
Yeah.
nice wad of money someplace. I mean, that kind of fits with the purple bag. Maybe if like he got robbed, he didn't want to take too much out at once, so
Mm.
that there'd always be more to come back and deposit again. That's interesting.
Yeah, and maybe it might also explain the space slash volume issue. Like if he was taking money out of an ATM, like just covering the camera as he did his transactions, so it didn't pick him up. That would explain how he was getting more material to dispose of. Every time he did this. I had
Okay.
not considered this, but it does make a certain amount of sense.
I would think if he had also sent postcards with this theory, though, like somebody would have come forward with one of those. I would think, but
Mm.
You
I
would
don't know.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, even if he stipulated, you can tell no one. I mean, he's dead. I mean, if you find a giant wad of cash and you're like, years later you're like, oh, but yeah, I totally solved this mystery that this
Yeah.
eccentric old rich guy solved. I mean, what's going to happen? He's not gonna come back for you to take the money and repossess it or anything.
You broke the rules.
Hmm.
That would make a good Tales from the Crypt episode. Thinking about it,
That's a fun one.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
I kind of like the idea, though. Yeah, I mean, again, in most of this case, we don't have real facts about any direction that this could be going. So, like, it's a legitimate idea.
it makes more sense than some that I think I've stumbled across.
Right. Yeah.
What do you guys think about the idea that he was like on the run from like a mafia type crime organization? Is there any possibility of that? And I'm thinking back here to didn't want to have himself be seen on camera, was very
Mhm.
startled by people who were up next to him until he saw who they were, and then he was okay with it. Chose a very remote beach setting, perhaps which to meet someone after midnight. Um, mysterious objects in bag. Who knows? I mean, that could be anything, I guess, but
Um, I don't know. I mean, okay. So with that, the stuff he was getting rid of, are you implying that was some sort of like sensitive material or incriminating evidence? That
I'm not sure, to be honest,
okay,
where that
because
comes in.
yeah, because everything I saw, I mean, and read and whatnot about this suggests that after he was discovered dead, and they put the pieces together as to who he was based on the camera footage, or at least the relationship to not who he was, but you know what I'm saying. I thought from what I gather, they scoured like all the trash receptacles in town to try to see if there was anything weird that could point, or incriminating that could point to who he was. So if he was disposing of sensitive information, that whole dragnet probably would have turned it up. And so I don't think he had necessarily any sort of crime ties or spy ties or anything like that. Just because something would have turned up at this point, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know that I
Yeah.
disagree with this is like a, or I don't know if I think this is a correct theory, but I did think a couple of the things I had watched said that basically by the time they knew enough of who this guy was and went back to like look for CCTV footage, like those garbages would have been cleaned like days and days and days ago, and they just didn't know where that stuff had gone at that point.
Okay. See, I
Yeah,
was under the implication they also probably checked like the landfills, but maybe things are different in Ireland. I'm not really sure.
yeah. I don't know that I've heard I'm trying to think back what the officer, the policeman in the documentary uh had said about that. I think maybe they said that they checked the landfill, but I'm not 100% certain on that. But
Mm.
uh yeah, I mean then you can it's a matter of like, well, how well did they search? It's possible things could have gotten missed because people are like, I don't want to dig through garbage. Didn't do it.
Yeah.
He just kind of poked around a bit and didn't see anything. There's no way to tell, but it does seem, yeah, more like things that were dumped out probably were more just ordinary items, and there wasn't anything that would have stood out as being odd in the garbage. But I like the idea of this, like he's running from some person or trying to hide, or he's some sort of spy. I saw that come up in a couple different places. Um it's a fun idea, but he doesn't seem to be really laying low if that is the case. Like he's in a remote place, but he's also just going out several times a day. He could just like stayed in the hotel room the entire weekend.
Mhm.
If that's a possible, as something that he was trying to do was just to hide from people.
Yeah, it just
True.
seems
Yeah.
seems like that beach is just key to this whole thing of like probably he went there to do some sort of swimming activity, or maybe that's where he wanted to finish his life at or something. But with this theory, I guess maybe that's like he was trying to find like the perfect spot to meet someone. I don't know. And like, why was he pacing for 8 hours? Like, if not
Yeah,
to wait for
that's
a
real
specific
odd.
time to meet for somebody. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I okay, fine. I'll launch into this. Um, just because I mean,
You know who he is, don't you? You were holding out.
well, I mean, things you guys are saying keep dancing around the theory of what I think happened. So I'm just gonna lead in with what I think is the answer to this. Um, so we know he was terminally ill. We know that evidence suggests he was probably in a lot of pain, and for some reason he didn't want to be found, or didn't want people to know who he was. So I'm thinking, in answer to your question about why he was pacing for so long on the beach, it's not he was waiting for someone, he was waiting for no one. He was waiting to be alone.
Sure.
He was,
Mm-hmm.
and he was during that time. He was, if I had to take a guess at it, he was probably contemplating the last hours of his life. I mean, it's not a small decision to, even if you're going to die in like a month or whatever. It's not a small decision to end your own life. He probably had a lot going through his head. So I would imagine he was taking that time just on the beach, just with some very existential questions swimming through his head. Um, So so that which leads me to what happens. Why did he die? He picked a spot. Maybe I don't know what Sligo's word of mouth or tourism is like, but he picked a place that was beautiful. Is my guess. Found a beach that he thought was a good aesthetically fitting place to live his last day. And when he was alone, he took it upon himself to swim out as far as he could and die. And leading up to that, he disposed of anything that could tie him to anyone that would come looking for him or possibly stop him. Is my guess. So I mean, it's not a happy thing. It's not a happy answer, but it seems the most straightforward explanation, aside from a few weird things that don't entirely add up. But overall, it accounts for a lot of his, to us, seemingly odd behavior.
Mm.
Because it being in that mindset, I mean, you're probably not thinking entirely straight.
Don't disagree. Here's why you're wrong. Counterpoint. First of all, why bring all your shit from your home if you're just gonna risk dropping it off in the same town you're gonna kill yourself in? Just throw that shit in the trash where you live, get rid of it, and then go on your trip. Doesn't make sense to bring it with you. What was he hiding then? Why deposit it in a different town, someplace far away? Second of all, this guy's so concerned about making sure nobody knows who he is, yet he walks around people on the beach for 8 hours, any of whom could go to the police and be like, hey, there's this strange guy wearing full clothing that's been walking in the water for at least 5 hours since we've been here. Maybe someone should check on that guy. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like that would be the exact environment I would be considering my life's mortality to be like, oh, sorry, kid, here's your ball. You kicked it over by. Let me kick it back to you quick. All right, now where was I? Oh, yes, 1975. That was a good year.
Well, in response to that, I mean, I don't know how late the cabs run in Sligo, Ireland. I mean, maybe he didn't want to risk, not being able to get a ride out there.
Yeah.
So he aimed low, so to speak, so he would get there early, and just he figured the rest would come in due time.
And I think the earlier cabbie he took, didn't he ask that guy, like, what's a secluded beach? And that was the one the guy had recommended too.
Yeah, he wanted a
So he
quiet
goes out
beach.
there the night he's gonna like kill himself, and he's like, mother,
There's like 16 people here.
there's a literal
Bastard
beach
lied to
fire.
me.
This is gonna take forever.
But I'm glad you brought back some levity to the discussion after
Why do
the
you
downer I
so
threw out there.
with your theory though, why do you think he would have brought anything with him? Like what did he
That is a kind of a head scratcher, unless it was very personal items that he didn't want other people to see. And maybe photographs, maybe just documents he had written or had sent to him, letters perhaps. I know this happened in 2020. I mean, 2009. So the letter writing wasn't as common as it was in the olden days. But maybe it was just very personal effects that he didn't want anyone else to know, that they were so personal. He wanted to take them with him.
to have them one last time with him.
Maybe.
And then slowly distribute them over 13 trips out of the hotel over the course of 3 days.
Maybe he had a lot of mistresses. I don't know. A lot of love letters he had to tear up and shove in mailboxes in Ireland, or not mailboxes, waste bins. There we
Could
go.
have just been his lunch.
It could have been his lunch. It could have been
What
money.
if,
I
what
like the
if-
money idea.
One of the bags had a chicken and it just kept laying eggs, and so he would take them out in the bag.
Got to get rid of them somehow.
Yeah.
Going back to the money thing for a second. I mean, it just dawned on me. Okay, wouldn't someone have noticed a missing millionaire? Like back wherever he's from, Austria or Germany or wherever his accent.
Everybody's a
actually tied
millionaire in
into.
Austria. They wouldn't notice that.
But I mean, if he was, some rich fat cat distributing his wealth in this seemingly randomly chosen area, you think someone would have noticed he wasn't in his mansion anymore or something? It just that just dawned on me.
Yeah. You could be wealthy and not like important also. That is a possibility. Yeah.
I guess.
If you were like very independent and like reclusive back where you were from, then you probably don't have anybody that even knows you have money, you know?
Yeah. If you're not going out and buying Porsches every weekend.
But then to your point, I
Yeah.
guess you got to be getting your money someplace. So even your work or something would be like, hey, we're so and so.
Yeah, like, oh, the
Mhm.
heir of the Bergmann steel estate has not been heard from in 12 years, you know, that sort of thing. It's
Come to my island for an adventure.
uh, but I don't know. It's just I do like the idea that he was distributing his fortune just randomly across this little out of the way town in a different country. But it's just I don't know. The more I think about it, the more issues I see with it.
It's
Anyway, we can go back to other theories. It's just that jumped out at me, and I wanted to touch on it.
no, what this I was just gonna say, this is like another one of these true crime cases we did where I just feel like none of them again add up to 100% of the story.
Mm.
But some are closer than others, I would say. But there's just like it's not really that weird of a story, but at the same time, there's just like a few elements here and there that you're like, well, why would somebody choose to do that?
Yeah. There's oddities that don't make sense to someone who, if you don't have enough information, like maybe it made perfect sense to him, but it doesn't make sense to me why the heck he was doing all this stuff.
Sure, yeah. But
yeah, there's enough oddities to make it opens the door to many more possibilities than what may be just a normal boring story.
Yeah, it's no Dyatlov Pass incident, but it definitely has an air of the bizarre to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know the one video I watched on YouTube was just a guy basically saying like, if this was a guy trying to just end his life in like his own way, like should we even be trying to solve this guy's final moments? Like out of respect to that guy. So
yep.
That's a fair criticism.
Mm.
That being said, if you don't want to be so mysterious in your death, then
don't do as much weird shit.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Let's see. I don't have too much else on this one. I did note that he was buried in an Irish cemetery, so that's where he is at, with an unmarked grave, and 6 people attended his funeral, which I think we're all police staff essentially.
Would make
There was
sense.
no one else there. And then last other note I haven't said yet is I hadn't heard of the website before, but there's a website called Locate International. I don't know if you guys stumbled across that, but essentially it's like a global missing persons registry. And they have a file on this guy. It's actually a decent website. If you go on, you can like click on like the surveillance camera, his clothes, his death, the location. But it's totally not from a like, ooh, mysterious crime type thing. It's literally like a website to be like, can you help us find who this person was? Like they don't even call him Peter Bergmann on there. He's like what's the town called?
Sligo?
Yeah, it's
Sligo.
like Sligo man, I think they call him on there. Like they don't even call him this alias.
That's fair.
And this was as of 2023 August, they were asking the Irish newspapers and other people to more or less re-raise awareness for his case in an effort to try to push again to see if they can find out who he is. So this is still a very current ongoing thing, I guess.
I have no further theories on this case. I think my my feelings on it are probably very, very mixed and unsure. I both all the points that both of you just made recently all make a lot of sense to me. Even though they don't, like, they're obviously like opposing sides, they can't both be true, but they both sound like they could very well be true. And I honestly I don't know which way to go on this. It seems mostly like to me like he was just there to end his life. But if so, why did he have so much stuff to throw out? That's the a big issue. But that's where I stand with it. Do we want to like try and do any kind of official like thought on theory, or I mean I don't know what, or if we just talked it out and we're ready to be done with it.
Well, you know where I stand, since I kind of did it, piece by piece. Yeah, I think this is another kind of almost Eliza Lamb sort of case without the mental illness. This is someone who he went to this place to end his own life. He acted bizarrely, but I mean, I would imagine if you're staring death in the face, where it's like right around the corner, weeks, months, however long he had left to live, it might change how you approach things. It might change what you decide to do, how you decide to do it. Um, I think whatever he was disposing of, despite the anomaly of how much of it there was, I think it was just documents or items, clothing, whatever that was important to him, that he felt were too personal for anyone else to rifle through or to, that basically he wanted to take with him. And he did it in the only way he could think of, by just getting it as far away from everyone as that would have a connection to it as he could, and disposing of it in a country, in a town where no one would see any significance in it. Um, and for whatever reason, he just didn't want anyone to know he was gone, uh, or at least who he was when he was gone. The fake name, the fake address, the fact that he crossed not only state or province or precinct, whatever line, but country lines where the jurisdiction gets so muddled, and up in the air. I can only imagine like trying to for like a police department in Ireland to be working with one in Austria or wherever he actually was from. It's got to be a whole lot of hoops to jump through. So I just think he did everything he could to make himself anonymous, to get away from whatever his life had been. I don't know if that's to save his loved one's pain or to just make it so, for some reason, maybe he felt he should be erased from history. I don't know, but he didn't want anyone to know him, so he did everything he possibly could to do that, and chose a place that, by all accounts, seems to be beautiful, to end his life and to just ideally fade away. But the ocean had different plans and washed him back up on the shore. Otherwise, we would have even had the body to work with. We would have just had some grainy, close camera footage and some clothes on the beach. So we it would have been an even greater mystery then. Um, so yeah, simplest answer I think is the correct one here. He just wanted to leave the world as completely as he possibly could. So
You did just say something new in there, which is like the flip of kind of the weird mafia theory I said earlier, which is like, what if he was just trying to leave where he was from because he was in danger or because he had something, and like the location is not important, maybe it is what he took with him. Maybe it's just that he was trying to get out of there with whatever it was. Or I would say, do we know? We don't know that this guy even knew he had cancer. That's not documented anywhere.
Right. We don't. That's a possibility.
I mean, sure,
It's unlikely, but
Maybe
it's
he,
like you say, like
he
maybe the cancer was not painful to him. Maybe he
I,
didn't know. That's possible. We don't know.
Yeah.
yeah, I would imagine he knew he was sick to some capacity.
Coincidentally, he was just trying to escape the local thugs back home and took the evidence that they had on the Tunguska incident and the Dyatlov
Time
Pass
travel.
incident and everything else, and slowly distributed them elsewhere. Now, what's interesting to me about this one for real though is like even if we could find who this is, like if they could conclusively or within a shadow of a doubt try to say this is, John Smith, he's from this place in Germany, blah blah blah. Like this would still be an interesting case just from like the aspect of the purple bags, like what was in them then, or why did he pick that town in particular in Ireland of all places, or like was he actually trying to avoid the cameras this whole time? Like even if we knew who this person was, we'd still probably be left with a lot of questions and mysteries here, which is, I mean, that part of it I think is kind of fun, but I just can't imagine. I don't know. It does seem like he was somebody who was probably picking a quiet spot, like Justin said, and that was just going to be it. But again, like, why the pieces to this mystery then, if that's what you were going to do? Like, if you wanted the ocean to claim your body, I'm sure he could have found a cliff in Ireland and just jumped, and that would have been it. And then he would have got what he wanted a lot quicker. So I don't know. This is a really hard one. I just don't know if we have enough to conclusively say what happened to this person. It's definitely a mystery.
Yeah.
I don't know. Unless, again, not knowing who this person is, but for all we know, like he went there when he was 7 with his parents, and his whole
It's
family's dead,
possible.
decides himself, and he remembers
Right.
a good memory from this one place, and he just went back there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a possibility.
But then
Yeah.
again, but I mean, even if that's the case, then like, why ask a local like what a good beach is to go to? Like, maybe it was just
Yeah.
the town that he had a memory of. I don't know.
Yeah. And at this point, any questions in that vein are pure speculation.
Yeah,
Um,
I can only.
interesting to
Yeah, go
pursue,
ahead.
but I was going to say interesting to pursue, but virtually impossible to answer.
Well, I was just thinking too, like the method of death. Why would you? It'd have to be so you're hoping your body's washed out, right? Like I can't think of any
Mhm.
other reason why you would pick to go to the ocean to do that.
Specifically to a beach as well. Like you could
Yeah,
go anywhere along the ocean.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that is a good point. Um, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Hmm. What was in the purple bag? I don't know.
Yeah,
This is a good mystery though.
it is. I mean, it, in a way, it has the least. Uh, I don't want to say supernatural elements, but the
Yeah.
fewest bizarre aspects to it. I mean, besides his behavior. So yeah, it's mundane yet very strange at the same time.
Hmm. It feels like a good explanation for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um,
Well, any further thoughts that we want to toss out there?
I just have a random thing I was going to give to you guys. This is not I just found this while I was clicking on videos for this guy, and this is not a
Hmm.
topic that we have ever done on the podcast here, but on this similar vein, had you guys, I'm sure, maybe ever heard of the man from Torrid? It was like the time traveler guy who claimed he was from a different country that didn't exist on the map and had like
Hmm.
change in his pocket that was from like didn't match anything on Earth, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
This is another famous case, but I happened to see a video on this guy on YouTube, and it was basically called like how people from Reddit solved the case, and I was like, wait, what? And
Huh.
clicked on it, and they apparently went down like the newspaper rabbit hole and actually found like one from like 1960 and like one from earlier and one from earlier of like 3 instances of like this guy who was hauled in front of a courtroom and like claimed to be from this place, and they I'll see if I can find it again, but basically they found documented evidence that this is not just an urban legend. This was a real person, although, the story is probably not real.
Hmm.
Wow.
But they found that this guy had apparently I saw a picture. I don't know if it's a legit picture or like somebody created it for the purpose of explaining it or whatnot, but
Hmm.
they claimed that the guy had actually gotten into like Taiwan using this passport he made from a country that didn't exist. And they like
Okay.
stamped it and let him in
Oh my
because
God.
the
Holy
passport,
crap.
he was like, oh, it's like a sub-Saharan country in Africa. And they're like, oh, yeah. It's like, oh, okay. And so he had like multiple stamps on this passport from a country that didn't even
Whoa.
exist.
That's wild.
But yeah, but anyway,
That-
there was like two articles in a Japanese paper and like one in maybe a British paper, I think, but they actually
Whoa.
think they might have found the origin of this mystery. So not to say that
Damn.
that's the whole story, but thought that that's one I
That-
had heard of for a long time, so I just thought that was interesting.
yeah, that's pretty wild.
Maybe we'll have to. I don't think there's a ton on that one that I recall that's out there,
Hmm.
but just a fun little aside. So
Sure.
yeah.
All
Well,
right. Well, I think if we have no more talking points, I guess that's the end of our case here. This has been the story of Peter Bergman, a man who apparently does not exist and never did exist, but uh, that is what we know about him. So, uh, I guess that brings us to the portion of the episode where we play a little game called Where in the World is Kate Middleton? This is the game where we ask our contestants the hot topic question, where in the world is Kate Middleton?
Oh my.
Reminder to our two contestants tonight that you have to buzz in before answering and go.
Oh, Jesus.
One second.
Buzz, I was just made aware of this mystery the other day. I didn't even know this was a thing because I generally avoid all things royal family in Britain, period. That being said, I think she died a year ago.
Hey, incorrect. Justin, your option here.
Okay. I'm going to say she has emigrated to the country of Torrid.
Okay. I like it.
Buzz, she is in Ireland looking for her late grandfather that apparently went missing on a beach.
Well played, sir. Although, sorry, that is incorrect. The correct answer we were looking for is if she was in your ass, you would know it. Time for round two. This time the question is, if Kate Middleton was in your ass, precisely how would you know it? And go.
Boy. Justin, I'm usually more of a ass guy here. Do you want to buzz in first on this one, or Buzz? Is it the lingering stench of American oppression?
Yes, that's it.
Oh,
done.
okay.
Great answer.
Yes.
I was completely at a loss for how to answer that.
Well, it looks like Cody wins the game this time. Join us next time on Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing, the Fun Pod, the Foncast.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Have a cough attack, but
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. I've been and I actually am Brett. This is not a fake name. And
so you say
Cody and Justin here. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye.
All right. See ya.